everyone hear me? And make sure I'm getting everything working properly. So day 9 of the Karen Read trial. So what I've noticed so far is that the recaps that we've been getting, some days I can't watch, or I'm trying to work and watch at the same time, and I'm behind. But there's not any real recaps out here. Like, there's just such biased content creators that are living in an alternate reality. Good evening. And I'm just like, I want to make a video, but videos kind of take a long time to make. So I'm just like, all right, I'll just go live and put it out there, because I just think it's such a, I don't know, the way that this case is being presented in general is just so incorrect and so fraudulent, and it's wild. It's wild. So yesterday, the whole Nebba Cracker thing, I thought that was hilarious. I thought Yannetti kind of made an arse out of himself. I mean, there were certain things that with Chris Albert, his testimony, they're going to try to trip them up, and they're going to try to catch them, with times. This was over 2 years ago, and asking people about specific details about a night 2 years ago, a night that was uneventful as far as they knew at the time. And, not remembering, what were you saying on that phone call 2 years ago at, February 2nd for 7 minutes, like that kind of thing. Nobody is going to remember that kind of stuff. And so I don't know. And so their response to it, I think some people respond better. But they're already on the defense because of all of the harassment and everything that's been going on in this case. So I just think, it's very interesting to watch. And if you think about what these people's lives have been turned upside down for about 2 years now, and the amount of gossip in that town, and, people turning against them. I think that, friends' parents and their friends, and it's affecting their whole family all the way down. It's wild. It's wild because they were all friends at one point, not too long ago. And I mean, Karen Read was the outsider. I think they try to hammer that home today. But she was the outsider. She wasn't part of Canton. Yes, most of the people that are testifying in this case are townies. But I don't think that most people think about it that way at all. Outsiders might think about it that way, but I think people that actually grew up and lived in the town aren't really thinking like that. I don't know if they really care that much. Tim, you're watching the entire trial. I think that I've caught almost everything. There were certain things that I kind of skipped through a little bit, but I'm trying to watch everything. So today, the big events were Carl Dougal, I guess, got kicked out of the courthouse. Carl Dougal was one of John O'Keefe's best friend, or was his best friend. He was a vocal supporter of justice for John O'Keefe. He spoke out about Karen Read in the beginning, just basically saying that they were close friends, and she cut off all contact. I mean, she cut off all contact with everyone. And I think that was the red flag for a lot of people. That's why she doesn't have people in her life supporting her, especially people that they were mutual friends with. I don't think any of their mutual friends are supporting her, openly supporting her. I think a lot of people that are, supporting the prosecution are keeping quiet because they don't want to be harassed. I mean, the Camaranos, Katie and Michael Camarano, they were afraid to say anything because they know what's been going on in the town. And so I just think it's crazy, because I don't know if anyone will be vindicated at the end of this all. Maybe they will. If the prosecution has enough, because the way that they are, the whole thing today. So Julie Albert this morning, or her testimony at the end of the day yesterday, was She said she rarely talked to Courtney Proctor. Courtney Proctor is the sister of State Trooper Michael Proctor, who was the lead investigator on this investigation. So Julie Albert was not present at the house, but she is the sister-in-law of Brian Albert. Yes. They're all related. It is confusing. So she's the sister-in-law of Brian Albert. And so she was really close friends, or actually it's her sister that's close friends with Courtney Proctor, who is the sister of the state trooper. So there is some relationship. I just think she was very on the defense of, like, what did you say at this time? I don't think she seemed to be, like, she didn't come off as being untruthful, but she definitely was holding back. She didn't want to say things. She felt like she was getting into traps. Because, I mean, let's be real. These are, like, housewives. Like, this is the best gossip that they've probably had in years. Ever, probably. I mean, of course they're all talking about it. They're all talking about it as soon as it happened. And then once they started getting harassed, even people that didn't talk to each other probably started bonding over the harassment because, you know, they were on the outs and they were getting harassed by this mob of Deliverance people. And so even if in the beginning they weren't talking or they didn't know each other that well, they definitely were getting closer and closer and closer. So Carl Dougal, his friend got kicked out today. There's a bunch of different stories, but I guess him and Karen bumped into each other. It appeared to be an accident. I think a court officer saw it, and they said it appeared to be an accident. But then Karen said she was afraid of him or something. So then they ruled that, I don't know if it's forever, but a lot of people are saying it's for the rest of the trial. He can't come. I don't know. I have no idea. But I don't know. Some people are saying that he pushed her. I highly doubt that, though. Like, I don't believe it. Like, he's a big guy. Like, I mean, if they bumped into each other, I could see her being scared. But she also wants to play games. Like, she's a master manipulator. From everything that we've seen, like, she's turned a whole town against each other. So I would say that she would say anything to get by. Like, I saw the other day, or a few days ago, when she revealed that she had MS. I've known that for a long time, but she said it on court TV, or someone said it on court TV, or her attorney said it. But then they have, like, footage of her walking out of the courthouse, like, hobbling along, and I'm just like, she has never walked like that before, ever. Like, she is just such... I just don't know. She is something else. I just can't believe anyone's falling for it, to be honest. So Carl Dougal got kicked out, and then Turtleboy got kicked out. So Turtleboy, halfway through the day, or it was Julie Albert was testifying in the morning. She was getting grilled on 67 phone calls because she said she talked to her rarely. And then they're like, well, we have your phone logs, and we saw you called her 67 times. And I honestly, it's bizarre because these are like peripheral witnesses. Like, how do they have their phone logs? I think that's what the FBI helps them with. And, like, maybe the FBI was doing an independent investigation, but it does not appear that way because they got into everybody's phone logs and then handed over to the defense without any kind of warrants or anything, without any kind of court orders. It's bizarre. I mean, because that's not normal. Like, you have to have probable cause to get people's phone records. And so it's just bizarre. And the thing is, if the FBI did find anything that actually was incriminating to anybody else, this trial wouldn't be happening right now. People would be indicted. So they've gone through everybody's phone calls. They've looked to see where people were. They looked to see if there were dog bites. They know if Colin Albert was at that house or not. And nothing. And they were completely, I mean, it seems like they were completely on the side of the defense because I mean, the prosecution has said that they never even asked them for any of their files, and like nothing. So they were just being fed the same bullshit that we were fed for like a year through the Turtleboy blogs, and like that's what they had to go on, and that's what they were trying to prove, and they couldn't prove any of it. So I mean, people just need to start using their brain a little bit. You can't believe everything that you hear on the internet. People are on the internet to make money and to, you know, get views and likes and clicks, and some people are taking it too far. And I mean, I got sucked into the true crime lies a little bit during the Idaho murders, and I don't follow true crime. I don't really like it. I think it's kind of toxic. Like it's just a negative space kind of. But I was just very interested in that case because there was just so many things that I didn't understand that I wanted to understand more. So I started watching some true crime creators, not realizing how like manipulative they were to get the likes and the clicks, and that they were going to say anything and like really push these ideas that had no basis. So I think I fell into that a little bit, but then that's why I started posting on it, because I realized, all right, the news isn't really covering this stuff properly. So I just started like reading into it myself, and then decided to start posting about it, because I just didn't think that anyone was really covering it properly, because a lot of people were covering it from, let's find the conspiracy angle. And that's kind of what this Karen Reed case has turned into too. Because at some point you have to back up and like use your logic and think about what the facts are and who said what, and I mean, what really is going on here. If you think about everything that they've told us, and so from the jury perspective, the jury might not know all of this stuff. As of right now, they have not seen all of Karen Reed's television interviews where she's saying a lot of kind of negative stuff about John O'Keefe, and that right there is a red flag, because a lot of the times people are still mad at the person that they murder, and they don't even realize it, and it still comes out. Like, she called him a drunk a few times in that interview, and just, I don't know, it's just she didn't come off well at all. So the jury doesn't know about any of that. The jury doesn't know about all these stories. And so it's just shocking to me that they're pushing these narratives still in court. So if you think about the Casey Anthony trial, and that's what I keep thinking about, because that was probably the first big trial that I paid a lot of attention to. And in that trial, you know, the Zanny the Nanny stuff, there was like a lot of weird information, and it wasn't like they honed in on one conspiracy right away, but like we were hearing these things before the trial, and it was just like, what actually happened here? And the thing with the Casey Anthony case is that I never knew. I never could come to a conclusion of what happened, and I think that's probably what happened to that jury, because I didn't know if it was an accident and she just tried to cover it up, if it was on purpose, if she drowned in the pool. Like, there was just too many unanswered questions, and I think that's probably why that jury found her not guilty. In this case, though, they're actually putting all the conspiracy theories in front of the jury, and I just don't think that's gonna go over well, because I think most people are normal. Like, I mean, so the dog bites, I mean, I can't believe are they going to have an expert that's going to say those are dog bites? Because, I mean, that expert's credibility is going to be gone, because those don't look like dog bites. So the dog bites, and then going after Colin Albert, because it's like, I just can't believe they're doing that, because they're going after Colin Albert. Like, so the beginning of the week was all about the investigation was sloppy, and now it's dog bites. Now it's Colin Albert, and it's like, pick a lane. Like, this isn't making any sense at all. Because, I mean, I think what happened here is that, you know, the body was in the lawn. Everyone is going to sit in their living room and talk about it and be shocked and have a conversation. Like, it's not that they were conspiring, like, what should we do? How do we cover it up? Like, they wouldn't have been shocked about it because they would have already known there was going to be a body on the lawn the next day, right? If they did it, they wouldn't have to have that conversation at the table in the morning because they would have already been like, well, we put the body on the lawn last night, so let's just go about our day. Like, this is a bunch of people that were shocked. And it's just crazy that anyone's believing this after everything that's come out. So what we're seeing now is that certain pieces of the conspiracy are constantly being broken down. And I don't think the cult is seeing it. The jury, if they don't know what the conspiracy was, like, I mean, I don't know if it has that much benefit for them. But I guess once they do their closing arguments, if they're going to try to say all this stuff, I mean, it was sloppy, but it was also a cover-up. And it was a cover-up because it was Colin Albert, but then there was also a dog involved. And then, to cover it up, they decided to put the body on their own front lawn with everyone's DNA all over them. Like, oh my God. I wish that people had a brain. I really do. But, I mean, almost every content creator is selling the narrative. Like, Melanie Little is out of her damn mind. It's, like, her take on some of the most, like, Chris Albert's testimony about Nebuchadnezzar and about the real story behind Nebuchadnezzar. I mean, Turtleboy has been pushing the narrative that John was this angry, get off your lawn type of guy since the beginning. And I was always like, yeah, that's really motive for murder, especially since they already moved off the street. And it's not like, even if, and I believed it. I believed that maybe Colin Albert was like a little punk and they did have an argument or something at some point. But now I'm like, oh, Nebuchadnezzar was like a joke because he scared the little kid acting like Nebuchadnezzar and from the Monster House movie. And so they named him that and they joked about it. And it's unreal. And then the pictures that they brought out about when Chris and Julie Albert were watching John O'Keefe's house and they had like thumbs up in front of the house, trying to like say they were taunting him. Like, the jury must be like, what? Especially if it's a local, I mean, they should be local to that area. And I mean, it means that people like tease each other. Like, that's kind of the culture in the Boston area. Like, you talk shit to it's like terms of endearment to like talk shit to your friends and your family and, make fun of them and tease them. Like, it makes it, to me, it makes it seem like they were much closer to John than I originally thought. So that's why I'm like, is this even doing them any favors? Like, they look ridiculous right now. And so some of the key points today, let's see if I can, I don't know which screen this is going to show up on. So Julie Albert this morning getting grilled. I won't be able to see on that screen, but let's see. I just think she should have just been, I mean, it's so hard because like, if you're forthcoming, you're probably still going to get screwed. But let's see. And so, where is it? I'm getting used to this. I never go live. All right, let's see if it's playing. So immediately they're gonna grill her about the 67 phone calls.
Okay, I'm just going to remind you to keep your voice up, please, Miss Albert. Okay. All right, Miss Gianetti.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yeah, Melanie Little. I just.
Good morning, Ms. Albert.
Good morning.
Of course. Well.
Ma'am, you will recall yesterday, I broached the topic with you of how often you...
Oh my goodness. All right, my internet is slow, so I'm just not going to do that right now. So anyway, he grills her about this 67 phone calls, how he's like, well, um, that's not rarely. And, but to her, it is rarely because she talks to people multiple times a day. And I know there are a lot of people like that. Like for me, 67 phone calls in 8 months, that's a lot, a lot. I don't talk to anybody that much. But I know some of my female friends who talk to people multiple times a day and almost never get off the phone. And so I feel like that's how these people are, like these women are. And so I don't think it's really much, but of course they're also gossiping about Karen. Of course they are. Like this is the biggest thing that's ever happened in Canton ever in their lifetimes probably. And it happened on their relatives' front lawn. So obviously everyone's talking about it. I don't think they thought they were going to be implicated in it though at all. I don't think they expected them to come after Colin. So I feel like they seemed pretty honest. Like Julie definitely wanted to hold back. She did not want to say. She really just did not want to. She was afraid to admit the wrong things. And so I don't think it made her seem dishonest, but she just didn't seem like she was forthcoming either. And so I think the biggest one, so Turtleboy getting kicked out. I want to watch that. If it's going to show it, I could just shut the volume off if it's going to be slow. But they basically stopped everything so that they could kick him out. So I don't know if that's a lady kick him out yet, but I don't know. It's just comical too that they're like, oh, he's a journalist. Like, is he? Is he really? I think it's on the mute. But so he's there. I was actually surprised to see him there. So I'm like, oh, he's allowed to be there? But I guess apparently not. I think that they just said that he had to leave during certain testimonies. I know that there was 8 witness intimidation charges. I don't know which witnesses those are. I mean, I'm assuming definitely Jennifer McCabe, definitely Colin Albert. I guess it's probably Brian and Nicole Albert as well, Chris Albert, Julie Albert. I'm trying to think of who else he really went after. I don't know. But, I mean, you made your bed. I just wanted to see him get dragged out kicking and screaming. So then his lawyer comes up. So this is him. This is the precursor of him getting kicked out. But then his lawyer came up, and it was funny because as soon as his lawyer came up, he's like, he's never caused any problems. And Paulo keeps right behind him, laughing, oh yeah, he's never caused any problems. He's pretty much tried to do everything he can to get his brother's killer off the hook and made up lies and made up stories, attacked all the witnesses. It's unbelievable. Even if, for whatever reason, let me just minimize this. So for whatever reason, let me pull in his lawyer because his lawyer was kind of funny. Not funny, but,
Added to the quantum of evidence.
So this is, I think it's Tim Bradle. I think he's represented Turtleboy for a long time. And so...
evidence in the matter. He's never caused a problem. He wishes to be in the galley of journalists, like everyone else,
Except he's not a
and
journalist.
cover the case. There's never been a problem whatsoever. This is more personalized retaliation from the Norfolk County DA's office against Mr. Carney.
I do think that Alberts came off really
Another
good.
point, Your Honor, is that this
I think they just came off as normal people. There is nothing, it didn't appear to be anything nefarious. And I think that's huge, because there's just so much to this case where you're expecting that these people are going to, I don't know, like Nicole Albert just came off as such a mom. Like, it was funny. So Nicole Albert, and I thought she handled herself like really well. So when
Video, so I'll play a little bit more and see if you might be able to recognize it. You don't recognize who that individual is?
I mean, it could be me. I'm not sure. I can't really tell.
All right, so this is an instance where the video has to speak for itself, right?
Understood, Your Honor.
I need to get the hang of this sharing the screen stuff. Yeah, I'm wondering, because I know Turtleboy was complaining about Nick Rocco getting his spot for a while. So Nick Rocco, I guess, is one of like the big Turtleboy supporters.
Yes. Now seeing the coat, I recognize that it's me.
Thank you. And did you see what was in your hand when you walked by?
I don't.
You could play just a little bit more.
I don't even know why this girl's cross-examining.
Ms. Sauber, do you see that you appear to be holding something?
Yes.
What is that?
Looks like a can.
And what time is that video taken?
11:58.
That would have been approximately the time that you were leaving the Waterfall Bar and Grill.
Yep.
You guys had a fun night. It looks like you kind of grabbed the White Claw. You're about to leave. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. You testified earlier that you got home.
So can we turn the lights back on and, okay.
Thank you.
Like, I don't understand, like, what is she saying? Like, oh, you brought a White Claw out, so, I mean, the White Claw wasn't found next to John O'Keefe's body, so I don't know what the hell she's trying to say. It's just so weird. It's, like, so desperate how graspy they are. I think when they started asking, like, who's at the house, that kind of thing, I think, overall, I think Nicole Albert came off as a mom. Like, she was really thinking and trying to recount what happened.
2022. You left a lot of names out of individuals who were present at your house on the morning of January 29th, 2022. Isn't that correct?
I'm not sure who was left out.
Did you tell Trooper Proctor that your son, Brian Albert Jr., was home that night?
Was home on the night of his birthday, or what do you mean?
Yes, the night of his birthday.
Well, yeah, he was home with his friends.
Did you tell that to Trooper Proctor?
I assume I did.
So if it wasn't in his report, that would have been his mistake.
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Did you tell Trooper Proctor your daughter, Caitlin Albert, returned home with you after the waterfall?
I believe so.
Did you tell Trooper Proctor that your son had 2 female friends at your house when you arrived?
I believe so.
And notably, did you tell Trooper Proctor that Colin Albert was present at your house?
You know, I
It is
probably
illegal in
didn't, because
Massachusetts to leave with open
anytime I was
containers.
questioned about who was there, to me it was who was there afterwards, hanging out from like the 12:15 point on. I didn't consider Colin as being there because I literally crossed paths with him. He left, and I didn't consider him being a part of the group that was there.
Were you asked who was at the house that night?
I assume he asked that, but I also didn't mention the people that my son had previous, because I didn't consider them as part of the people that I was with when I got home.
You never mentioned Colin Albert to Trooper Proctor, correct?
Correct.
And you never mentioned Colin Albert to Sergeant Lang.
Correct.
Ms. Albert, you knew that if you
I mean, I see why she wouldn't have mentioned him because a bunch of people came back from the bar. And I think she was the first one back with our daughter, Caitlin. And Colin was like walking out the door as she was walking in. And so, and she said that there was two other girls before she left for the night that were also in the house. And she didn't mention them either because they weren't part of the group that was, you know, flooding in from the bar at the end of the night. And I think that's valid. Why are you going to add more complication to a case? You already have a bunch of people that were present. I mean, I don't think that she was trying to conceal anything. It doesn't seem like. And in the beginning, I actually did think that they probably didn't want Colin in the house, not because, you know, he had bad blood with John O'Keefe. Now we know that he didn't have bad blood with John O'Keefe. So the whole point is kind of moot at this point. But I thought that maybe they didn't want him in the house because of the conflict of interest, because of like Julie Albert is his mother, whose sister is friends with Proctor's sister, right? So because I don't think Michael Proctor actually knows Brian and Nicole Albert or Jen McCabe or any of the people that were in the house that night. And so if Colin Albert was there, then maybe there's a conflict of interest, and maybe that's why he wasn't mentioned, or that's what I thought in the beginning. But now I kind of feel like she seems honest, so I'm like, oh, he actually was leaving as she came in. Because I mean, there's nothing to show that John O'Keefe ever went into that home, ever. Like his Apple Health data shows him going up and down stairs. They misconstrued that completely because their own expert says that he was going up and down stairs, but before he arrived at 34 Fairview. There's no going up and down stairs once he gets there. And so I just think that they have a million different defenses and they're all falling apart. I mean, the Nebuchadnezzar thing, that was the whole motive, right? Well, that was Colin's motive. And they're still going after Colin. So I'm like, well, what's his motive? What is a 17-year-old kid's motive going to be to challenge his, 46-year-old huge neighbor? Like what? In your uncle's house, who's also a Boston cop. Like, it's just not going to happen. Like, even if Colin Albert was a little punk, which I don't know that he is, but even if he did get into fights and stuff like that, it does not mean that, he would act like that towards adults, especially adults that his parents are friends with. Like, that's just unbelievable. It's just, they're grasping at straws. And I mean, I feel bad because that's going to ruin his, it's probably already ruined his reputation to some degree. All of them. But he's young, just going into college, and he was a student and he was an athlete. Like, that's tough. And people are so divided on it. And if you look at the comments, it's only people in Massachusetts that believe this at all. Like, everyone else in the country is like, obviously she killed him, but it's because they weren't getting the propaganda for a year and didn't become so invested in this case. So it's like, I don't know. It just seems, and that's the thing. Like, I don't know what kind of jury they have. If the jury is getting exposed to some of this, they probably are. And it's a whole alternate reality when you look at if it's Turtleboy or people online. It's a totally different reality. I think that they are trying to really push this narrative, and it's just kind of embarrassing. Unity, I feel really embarrassed himself with the 34 Fairview Road thing yesterday. So
what is it?
Picture of my house.
Does it appear to be generally to scale?
This was gross too, what they did with this. So
Yep.
You recognize sort of
I'm
the
just gonna let it
flagpole?
buffer for a minute. So yesterday, Uneti's like, do you know what Brian Albert's football number was? And Chris Albert was like thinking about it, and he's like, I think it was 34. And he's like, was that for 34 Fairview Road? And he like laughed like, what? I mean, it's so ridiculous. Like, they are literally using lunch lady research from the internet to try to create this defense. Like, this is literally what I saw true crime creators doing with the Idaho case. And like, the thing is, and I think defense attorneys are probably picking up that kind of stuff and kind of seeing what will fly. I think that Alan Jackson, I know for a fact that Alan Jackson reached out to several true crime creators, because I heard about this because I was local to the area. But like a week after I started talking about it, or I heard about it, it started getting pushed out. And true crime creators at the time were saying, oh, Alan Jackson like gave me this and gave me that. And they were talking about it. So it's not like they had to be paid, but it was more like, oh, I'm getting direct information from an attorney. And this is a conspiracy. This is what my viewers love. And so it was very easy to get them to say what you want, right? That's what gets the views and the likes. And so, I mean, I know that he went out and did that because he was on Nightline, and it was right around the time she was doing all those interviews. So he did it to poison the well, to taint the jury pool, and to kind of, I mean, I think they thought they were going to get it thrown out. They thought that they were going to get it thrown out because the Commonwealth was going to be so scared of, you know, bringing up all this dirt. Somehow they got the FBI to involve themselves. And I just don't know, because I just don't think there's anything realistic coming out of this.
Full in the yard,
Yes?
the house,
Yep.
the driveway,
Mm-hmm.
and that looks
Yes.
accurate. And that looks accurate in terms of scale, correct?
Yes.
Permission to publish?
Sure.
I mean, it's just,
Ms. Albert, where is your bedroom located?
Do you want me to show it?
Yes, if you could explain.
Right up here.
So your bedroom is in that upper left-hand quadrant, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
The far left window, that's your bedroom window.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yep. The two of them.
So on January 29th, you had two bedroom windows on the left side of the house that were facing the front lawn where Mr. O'Keefe's body was found, correct?
Yes.
it looks so barren, this picture. Like,
You're aware that Ms. Reed, Jennifer
so to
McCabe,
me, this is not at all what it looks like. It looks so barren and so empty because there's a lot of stuff over here by the flagpole. Like, I don't know why you can't really see it in this picture. I don't think this is a real picture, actually. I think this is like a mock-up or something. Maybe she said that, but that it looks, there's a lot more going on than this in that in that house. So I'm surprised they let them even put this in, because I don't think this is an actual photograph. It's a model or something, because there is a lot. It's not just flat ground to the flagpole. So she's going to say, oh, your bedroom was up in this window, so why didn't you see him? It's just so ridiculous. I just don't get it. I don't understand, like, why people are believing this.
Gary Roberts arrived at
I'm just going to shut some of these windows so that this is not so slow. But, I mean, so we had Julie Albert this morning. We had Carl Dougal getting kicked out.
and Courtney Proctor
We didn't see it.
speak to each other over the phone.
And then we saw Turtleboy get kicked out. You know, Julie Albert is guilty of being a gossip, which I think if they pulled, I mean, I feel like I've even been talking about this case a lot, and I'm not even in that town. So I can only imagine if you were related to how much gossip would be going on. So she's guilty of gossip. Colin Albert is guilty of drinking beers with his friends. I think they brought that up. I mean, if they bring up his knuckle pictures, and like, I don't think they'll bring that up. They would try. And I think, like, the reason that there was so many, the judge kind of ended early yesterday, but I think it was because they were getting into the part that they're not supposed to talk about, like the harassment, because some of these answers, like, why did you talk to her 67 times? Oh, because we were having all these articles written about us by Turtleboy, and we were bonding over the harassment, because they all definitely became friends because of this, even if they weren't in the past. So Jennifer McCabe and Carrie Roberts, I don't think were friends before this, but they're probably friends now, because they're bonding over this harassment. And I think Jennifer McCabe and Elizabeth Proctor, Michael Proctor's wife, probably weren't friends before this, but, you know, they bonded over getting harassed and being accused of crimes. And so I just think it's wild that people are kind of feeding into it. And so Brian Albert, he was the big one. I got like a pop-up notification. Brian Albert is testifying in the cop murder trial. I was he was not what I expected at all. I was really expecting, the Chloe stuff. The Chloe stuff I think is good. I mean, so Chloe, the dog, they're still pushing the dog bite stuff. So if I look at, so the dog bite stuff, basically the dog, she explains it. She got rid of the dog because the dog wasn't good with other dogs. She got out and attacked another dog and bit the other person's owner as she was trying to break up the fight. And the questioning is just...
Ms. Albert, you don't have Chloe anymore, do you?
Nope.
In May of 2022, 4 months after Mr. O'Keefe's death, you got rid of your family dog of 6 years.
Objection.
So is that true? Is that when you got rid of your dog?
I did not get rid of my dog. I rehomed my dog.
Your dog is no longer in the Canton area, correct?
No, but I know where she is. She's in Vermont. And that previous testimony, that information has all been given. So if she was ever needed for anything, we know where she is.
Is that testimony given to the defense?
So, I mean, that's the big thing. We know they're not dog bites. I mean, the defense has given up on that. I don't think the defense ever really thought that. It was Alan Jackson looked at the pictures and was like, oh, we can sell that to the public. We'll say it's dog bites. And so even when they were like testing for dog DNA, I mean, I thought there's a possibility that they'll get some kind of animal DNA on him if he was laying out there all night.
Probably.
But I think they always knew that there wasn't going to be dog DNA. And so, I mean, I just think it's crazy that they're really trying to like push this, like this just litany of different theories, because
Back home after you
they don't make sense.
went to the bathroom, what if anything did you do with reference to the dog?
At some point, I went upstairs to grab the dog and let her out back to use the bathroom.
And so when you would take the dog out, or when anybody would take the dog out to use the bathroom, how would that be accomplished? So what I'm asking is, would the dog be on a leash, or would it be let out in the yard? Or...
No, so the backyard's fenced in, so I would open up the back door and she can go out, use the bathroom, and come back inside.
So the entirety of your backyard, that's a fenced-in backyard, is that correct?
Yes.
And beyond that fence, as far as the abutting, what sort of abuts the back of your property?
So behind the back fence, there's a...
So the thing with Brian Albert, like I expected he was a lot softer than I expected him to be. And it's just because I saw just the way that he was being made out to be. And I mean, I think this is really why you can't believe everything you see on the internet. Like everyone is trying to sell you some bullshit. And I just think it's sad that, this family is being dragged through the mud. Like they have 5 kids. Like they are a mom and a dad. They are not gonna just randomly kill some guy and throw him on the front lawn. Like it's just never gonna happen. even if there was a fight inside the house, they would have, got help immediately. They're not going to be like, with a whole house full of people, be like, oh, how do we dispose of this body? Like, let's just throw them outside and let them freeze to death. That's just never going to happen. And I just think that these conspiracies are crumbling day by day, and the cult doesn't notice. The cult does not notice that the conspiracies are disappearing, but I think the rest of us do. And I think the jury is just going to be like, what are they trying to tell us here? Because they're just going in so many different directions. It's like, oh, I mean, are they on Colin Albert now? Or is it, and then they were asking Nicole Albert, oh, is it, how long did you not see Brian Albert and Brian Higgins when you got home? As if that makes a goddamn difference, because number one, she's either in on it, right? And she would just say that she saw them. Like, there's no way that, I mean, it's just so ridiculous. Like, she's either going to be in on it or she's going to be clueless. Like, she just didn't know that they killed someone in the house. Like, that's just ridiculous. So they're trying to say, like, I don't even know. They're just like pointing fingers in so many different directions at this point. It's like, all right, so the Canton Police Department, I thought the Canton Police Department just came off as they were out of their league. They didn't know what to do. They were in the blizzard. The snow was piling up. They got the evidence that they thought they could get. It was too windy to put up a tent. It was too windy for the police tape to be up. I do think that they should have had a cruiser sitting outside of the house all day until the CERT team arrived, until the troopers got there. So they didn't do that. But I mean, overall, I think that in the situation that they were in, I think they did what they could to, gather the evidence before the snow swallowed it up. So, I mean, and then, I mean, the whole Trooper Proctor, I mean, and we'll see how bad it is or how not bad it is. But from what we've seen so far, I expect it to be a lot less than what we've been told, because they have blown everything out of proportion so far. Like the Nebuchadnezzar thing. And I mean, her taillight, the whole thing is her taillight. They were saying that the taillight was cracked when she backed into John O'Keefe's car. Okay, they can say that. But then they're also saying it's not broken. It's just cracked. But then you can literally see the lights out when she's driving away. But then at the same time, they're saying that, there was still, all the red was still there. But now we just saw the 8:30 in the morning photo of her car. The red is gone. But the theory is that at 4:30 p.m. when Proctor seized her vehicle, that's when he got the pieces and planted them at the scene of the crime. But the red was already gone. We now know that the red was already gone. So that theory's out, right? So that theory's gone. They searched the scene in the morning when it was a blizzard. They didn't find anything, but they also weren't shoveling. And I don't know how far out they went from where his body was found. But once the CERT team arrived at 4:30, they found the shoe. I mean, they found a bunch of stuff. They found taillight fragments, the shoe. I don't think anyone knew that they were looking for pieces of taillight. So even if they saw them, I mean, they might not have thought anything of it. So, I mean, I think it's hard to say what was going on. I think Canton Police Department just does not do murders. I think they were totally out of their league. And there were certain things like, yeah, they all know the cops. But I think that in a small town like that, a lot of people know a lot of people. Like, townies know the cops. Townies know other people in the town. And, like, even if at the town I grew up in, I'm not related to all the cops, but, like, if a murder happened in my town, in front of my house, most likely the cops that are going to show up and respond to it are going to be people I grew up with. So does that mean that they can't secure the crime scene because, they have a pre-existing relationship? I mean, I think most small towns, that's how it is. So I just think it's bizarre that the defense brought up that fight that happened 22 years ago with the Lapolito brothers. I mean, that's that just makes them look so not credible. I don't even see what the hell they thought they were going to get out of that, right? It was like Chris Albert and a Lapolito brothers got into a fight, and Sergeant Lang also got into the fight. They all grew up together. It was 20 years ago, so they were like in their 20s. But why does the jury need to even hear about that? Because Sergeant Lang, what did Sergeant Lang even do? He collected the initial statements. That's it. And then he had nothing to do with the case. So, I mean, it just seems like they're grasping at straws, and I just think it's ridiculous. Oh, and the Ford Edge. I just wish they would put Lucky Lawford up already, because I mean the Ford Edge, like I read his interview with the state police, and he said the Ford Edge was light colored white, and they all have dark Ford Edges. So I mean that whole thing is out too. But you know who does have a white or a gray or a light colored Ford something Explorer? Kerry Roberts, when they showed up and found the body. So is that the Ford that he saw parked in front of where the body was? I think it probably was. He said he didn't see anyone else outside the car, but I mean, he was looking from the end of the street and didn't even drive down the street because the car was parked there. So, I mean, I don't think that there's no way that he could have seen them standing out there at that time. Like, they couldn't even see the body from the road. So, I do think that that's probably what he saw. Or he's just mistaken. I think his times are mixed up. I mean, I don't know. I mean, look at how murky a lot of these people's times are. Like, I think it's impossible for them to really know, like when they're asking about like, oh, when did Colin stick his head in the door and say goodnight to you? They just know that he did. Because, I mean, it was a habit that happened. But they don't really know when. I don't know when things happen unless I have a text. Then I remember like, oh, that's when if a text or something triggers me to do something, or an email, that's my timeline. Like, if I don't have that, like, I don't know what the hell time things are happening. So especially years later. And so that was the thing too, that they kind of got Julie Albert on. They were like, oh, well, you knew what time you had a missed call from Jen McCabe. You knew exactly what time, the missed call that morning when they found John's body. But you don't know about these calls from February, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, all right, that missed call from Jen McCabe had a timestamp on it, and she was asked about it days later, and she could look at the timestamp and respond to it. You're asking her about what she said on a phone call from 2 years ago, when they were all on their phones talking to everybody in that town, gossiping and, about this case, about this murder. So, I mean, it's just so ridiculous. I mean, I don't know. I think Lally does a good job of redirecting. I do think that he clears up a lot of things each time. Brian Albert is going to probably be the first cross-examination on Monday, unless there's some other drama that they have to take care of. And I don't know. He just came off as so nice and soft, and like, I'm surprised, because if I was getting the third degree like these people are about stuff that I know is bullshit, like I know where they're going because I've read the Turtleboy articles too about the Ford Edge and about Chloe and about Colin Albert, like I would start getting pissed off. And I'm surprised that no one's really given it back to them. I thought Nicole Albert was really good about, and I think she was probably, I think Chris Albert was really good too. Julie Albert was just too nervous to say anything. I think she was okay. Like, I don't think she came off as lying, but you could tell she just didn't want to incriminate. She felt like it was incriminating to say that she had Michael Proctor's number, which I don't know. I don't know that it is. Like, I think that there is somewhat of a conflict of interest there. I just don't know the extent of it. But I mean, what happens in these small towns though? I mean, because Canton's like a decent sized town, but I mean like a real small rural town. Like, the cops and the first responders just can't go because they know the people that live at the house. Like, that's not realistic. That's not what happens. They're trying to make things into something that they're not. And so we already know that the feds investigated this investigation and they didn't find anything that was worth indicting anyone over. We know they probably went through everybody's phones. So at this point, it's like, what do they think they're going to find? And so that's it for day 8. I think those are the main highlights. I think it's Julie Albert. She talked to Courtney Proctor a lot. She gossiped a lot. She talks on the phone a lot. I think that's pretty much all we got out of her. She had a migraine that night. She said goodnight to Colin Albert. The GoFundMe totaling $305,000. Which GoFundMe is that? Because I know that there's a bunch of them. So I know there's like a Yannetti one that is funding for Karen Reed. Maybe that's the $305,000 one. I know that there's another one that Turtleboy has. But we know that she spent $450,000 on her attorneys. And I don't think anyone spends that kind of money unless they're guilty. Because who has that kind of money? She's bankrupting her whole family. And like, I think it's going to be great when she's found guilty and her family's bankrupt. And, you know, you get what... I mean, I don't know. I mean, you never know, though. You never know. Oh, it's Turtleboy that has it. How is Turtleboy? I mean, Turtleboy, I think, is going to jail. I don't know. I don't know how this legal system is working these days, but it does seem like what Turtleboy and Karen did was definitely illegal. I think that even if she gets found not guilty, so I think at the most, I mean, I don't know. Like, we just don't know what the real evidence is. All we've seen so far are the first responder statements saying, I hit him. And then they're just showing all the peripheral witnesses, the ones that, you know, were all accused of covering this whole thing up. And it does not seem like any of them would be the type to cover anything up. So, but we have not seen the evidence yet. And I mean, I think that's going to be the nail in the coffin. And so her team coming out in the opening statements and saying, this is cover up and we're going to prove it. I just feel like, why did they say that? You know, because to me, she would have been better off saying, you know, I didn't do it. That's it. I dropped him off and that's it. I don't know what happened. But trying to point the finger at all these people, they did a sloppy job, but they're also framing her and maybe it's this person, maybe it's the dog, maybe it's this other person, maybe it's these 2 cops. Like, just pointing the finger at everybody else is just bizarre, because I feel like a jury would be sympathetic to her if she was just remorseful and they would have, you know, maybe not found her guilty of murder. I still don't know if they'll find her guilty of murder, but I just don't know. I feel like the Commonwealth must have something really, really solid, because this defense strategy is wild. Like, unless it's really, because if they didn't have anything, they wouldn't need all this drama. They wouldn't be like going after everybody. They wouldn't have tried to do this whole like social media campaign, this disinformation campaign. And I just don't know. So, I mean, that's what I'm like waiting for, because I think those are going to be the bombshells. That's going to be when, because right now I feel like the jury would just be like assessing, okay, I don't think they're distrusting any of these people like the defense thinks they are, or like the cult thinks they are. I think they're just saying, why are we interrogating all these people? Okay, so the cop got a free pass. I mean, I can see that a little bit working in their favor, a little bit, but it's like, doesn't matter once you see the facts. Doesn't matter once you see like her phone was right next to him the whole time until he stopped moving permanently. Does it matter if she was... So the thing that I'm like really curious about too is why they were talking about his like convertible or whatever he has on the other side of his garage. They made a point to talk about it, and it was like this convertible. Kaylee doesn't like it. They made a point to say that Kaylee, the niece, doesn't like it. And that John O'Keefe loves that car. And I'm just like, And they showed a picture of him in the car and put it into evidence. And I'm just like, did she, so like to me, it's like, did she vandalize his car because she was so pissed off, not realizing that she had killed him? Or did she try to take that car out because she couldn't find the keys to the Traverse? And that's why she came back. Because when she talks on Nightline, she says that she drove out. On Nightline, she says that she drove out and she drove out, went looking around, and then the weather was too bad, so she came back. And so to me, that doesn't make sense, because then she calls Jen McCabe, Kerry, she calls Camerano, she called a bunch of people, but then she still went out in her own car. I mean, I just don't get it. And then that's the time when they saw her on cameras going towards the body. And then they say that they could tell by her tower transmission data that she was like going back in that area. But it's like, why did she also say that she went out earlier? So maybe she took the convertible out in the blizzard. Like, that would be kind of hilarious if we're going to see her in a convertible driving down like Washington Street in the blizzard and then going back and then getting her broken up car. Like, I don't know. Because if you think about it, once she figured out what happened, so if I was in that situation, God help me if I'm ever in that situation, but if you were drunk and you start to remember things, and my first instinct would be, if I really did drop someone off, would be to go back to the house immediately and knock on the door and be like, oh, is he on the couch? Like, what's going on? But if I started to remember, like, oh, I might have hit him, I still would go back immediately before calling people, before waking people up. So, like, that's why it does seem odd. Like, I don't know. But calling people makes sense if it is a blizzard. I don't know. It just doesn't make sense. Like, drive back and knock on the door or call people. But you don't just drive back and look at the house. Like, what are you looking for? He's not going to be taking a nap on the side of the road. Like, it doesn't make any sense. So we just got to see what's going to come out next. I just hope that I just really want to hear what Lucky Lawford has to say. You know, I think they're saving the Good Samaritan people, it seems like. So whatever she said to those people, I think is going to be pretty damning. And then her phone data is probably pretty bad. Who else is the big witness? I mean, Jen McCabe and Kerry, I think they're going to give a lot of details that we probably haven't heard before. Because we've only heard what's been in the probable cause from them, which was very few statements. So for them to be questioned, we're gonna hear the whole shebang. And we're gonna understand why not one of his friends questions whether she did it or not. We're gonna know the real answer, just like his family does, as soon as they get on the stand. And I think that's why they're doing all these peripheral people in the beginning. They're setting the stage. All right, she said, I hit him. These are the people that, you know, might be on the cover up, but so far all of them have come across as genuine, that they like John, that there was no ill will. And I mean, maybe we're going to get Colin Albert next. I don't know. And so I just think that Jen and Kerry's testimony is going to be the bombshells along with her phone data. I mean, and then her phone data is important because I wonder who else she called. And like, was she Googling things? I mean, I think she probably was. And the way that she keeps saying found him in the snow, it just makes it seem like he was really covered in snow. It's not like he was on top of the snow. And that's why she was asking the people to Google how long to die in the snow. Like, he was underneath the snow. And so, like, that's why it was like, how did she see him? She knew he was there, or had a memory, or whatever. So, I don't know. We just need to get this party started. It's tough because the defense is bringing up all this random ass BS. And it just seems like that's what they've been doing this whole time, is trying to drag their feet and trying to, like, prevent the truth from coming out. Like, let's see the truth. Let's get it over with. Because, I mean, people's reputations have been dragged through the mud, and it sucks to be any of those young kids in that town. Like, any of the Albert's kids that are in school, like the youngest, I don't know if the youngest one is still in school, but I mean, any of the kids that are still in school, the McCabe's, the Albert, like, that must be rough. And then Colin Albert is, I mean, I think he's 20 now, so, but still, like, going to a school, like, everyone's watching, like, it's a lot. So, I mean, I just hope that they can vindicate these people, because I think it's awful what has been done. And I just hope that people start waking up and using their brain, because this just goes to show how easy it is to, get people to believe anything. And so I have no idea what the jury could be thinking. Like, so to me, I think that the jury is probably, I think that they're confused. If they aren't seeing anything outside, I don't know. Like, I just don't know if a jurors can really be that self-disciplined to not look at it, because it's everywhere right now. And so there's so many creators that have that, like, spin on it that is so pro Karen Reed that I'm like, I just don't know. Because I watched Melanie Little for like 2 seconds and I'm just like, this lady is batshit crazy. Because she is just totally on the side that they all just don't like Karen because she's a successful woman. And they all just want to frame her, and like they're all taunting John about the lawn, and it's just like, it's unbelievable. I just don't know. I just don't know. Because I think about like Casey Anthony was found not guilty, and OJ was found not guilty. And I think there's elements of both of those cases here. I think Karen Reed is similar to Casey Anthony, where she will tell any lie to get out of responsibility. If she could have just left him on the side of the road and just disappeared into the night, she would have done that. And I think that's kind of like what happened with Casey Anthony too, is something went awry and they didn't want to take responsibility. But then on the OJ front, it's the investigation. But investigations are always challenged. So, but the thing is, the red Solo cups, that blood's not even being used in this investigation for anything anyway. So I just don't know if it matters that much. I mean, the crime scene, yeah, should have been more secure. But where did her taillight break? We see it in the morning. There's no red pieces there. So where is it? Like, they couldn't have planted it if they didn't have it, right? You can't just grab some random ass pieces. They had to fit it all back into the taillight. And I think that's probably what they're going to have. They're going to have the taillight with all the pieces fitted back into it, or show that they found all the pieces, or most of them. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I think once we start seeing the real evidence, I think that's when people, I don't know. I don't think the cult is ever going to accept it, but at the same time, I look back at a lot of my old videos and I see a lot of people that were fighting with me all the time that are now, like, have come around to, reality and common sense and that kind of thing. Yeah, I think, and so that's the thing too, when the experts start talking about the multiple skull fractures, the head trauma, the blunt force on his arm, that's definitely not dog bites. It's like, all the stuff that they've been saying, like, they're just going to look so stupid. Unless they really have an expert that's going to ruin their reputation and say that it's dog bites. I don't know. But yeah, like Boston. But the thing is, just like creators, like the news itself also wants the views and the likes and the clicks and the viewers. So to sell it more on the, we don't know what it is. I feel like, though, the pictures that I see of her, when I search for Karen Reed on YouTube or whatever, most of them are like, she looks pretty evil. So I'm like, all right, so is it? It's just hard. Like, I think that everyone is divided on it. I mean, I just know from the facts that they pushed and that have been refuted. Oh, the Stephen Scanlon thing is another big thing. Stephen Scanlon said that there was a fight inside the house. And then we heard the Turtleboy interview where he's saying, who's calling Albert? Like, who? What are you talking about? Yeah, her story's changed so many times. I think they allowed all that in too. So we're going to hear her story change a million times. the Stephen Scanlon thing, I mean, I feel like that's a big pivotal piece, but I don't know if that will be allowed because Yannetti said it in open court saying, oh, Stephen Scanlon came and named Colin and Brian as potential suspects. And then he's on the phone saying, who's Colin Albert? I don't even know him. And then saying in open court, oh, Colin Albert drives a Ford Edge, and then the whole audience clapping. Like, I was like shocked that I just don't understand like what rules there are around like slander and libel. Like you can just get away with it, like accusing someone with no valid basis, knowing that the guy Scanlon never told you that. You're just gonna throw people's names out there like that. Like David Yannetti, like I don't know, he needs to be investigated too. I don't know if they found all 45 pieces. I'm willing to bet that they might have, or close to it. Because how else would they know if there was 45? That's true. They probably have an attorney on retainer. And I think a lot of celebrities do. A lot of celebrities do because you can, and attorneys, because you can talk a lot of smack. But if you're talking about people that don't have the means, they can't sue you. Or they can't afford to sue you. And that's just, I mean, that's the whole thing. Money is just controlling everything in our country. So Karen Reed, if she was poor or she didn't have the means, she would have already confessed. I don't even think she would have. She just has no remorse. I mean, that's my whole problem with her. Is like, I did feel bad for her at first. Even when I was like, when I realized that she most likely hit him. Innocent until proven guilty, but I would say that, yes, she most likely did it. I still felt bad because I'm like, that would be an awful situation where you like were drunk and you like were something like that happened and you start to remember and you panic. And I feel like that is what happened. But she should have just said, I'm sorry. I'll go to AA, I'll go to rehab, and, you know, I'll go to prison for a year. Like, I don't know. I don't know. She could get a lot of time. So I was thinking, there's this case in Tampa, Florida, Cameron Herron. He was like a kid, like 18 years old, and it's a cult, kind of like this case, because he was like a really good looking kid, had really pretty eyes. So like everyone's like, oh, he's innocent, but I mean, it was an accident what he did. He was driving, going like 80 miles an hour on a residential street, and he hit a mother and her daughter and killed them both. And he didn't show a lot of remorse, and he ended up getting 24 years in prison, and he was like 18 at the time. And like, there's a lot of people that are like, free justice for Cameron, and he's trying to appeal, and the judge is always like, no. But that was an accident, you know, a pure accident. And so that's why I'm like, I have no idea how much time Karen Reed would even get, because I mean, it seems like it was no accident, because 60 feet in reverse is not an accident. So even if she was in a drunken rage and barely remembers, it doesn't matter. Like, even if you felt sorry the minute after you did it, it doesn't matter. You still had that like intent to do harm and resulted in bodily harm or death. So it would be shocking though. It would be shocking to me, though, if she does get found guilty and she gets less time than Cameron Herron. Because it was an accident. He was a dumb kid. But 24 years for accidentally killing a mother and their child. So we'll just see how it goes. Too late for a plea. And then she's going to have our second trial about conspiracy and intimidating witnesses. So that'll be interesting. And I wonder if she does get found guilty, if they just drop the charges on the second trial. I just don't know. Yeah, she was happy to go along with the accident at first. Absolutely. But as soon as they upped the charges, all of a sudden she was like, I need a new story. Like, I didn't say I hit him anymore. And so that's the thing. And we don't really know why they upped the charges completely. I think it's because there was nothing wrong with the car. I mean, going 60 feet in reverse, there's no logical reason to do that ever. So, I mean, but that's where we are. And yeah, I did see how she was taking a selfie with the court officer, which is kind of bizarre. I mean, it's weird because I know I have cops in my family that completely believe that she's innocent, and I'm just like, what's wrong with you? How many cover-ups were you involved in that you think that this could happen? And I mean, I think that in the past probably cover-ups were a lot easier, but now with like cell phones are such a hindrance to crime, which is probably the only really good thing about cell phones, because it tracks everything you do. It's like your brain too, like the stuff you're Googling, that's what you're thinking about. And so I don't know. I just don't think that cover-ups are that feasible anymore, because of the cell phones, because of the DNA. So I just don't know. But yeah, I don't know. I'm going to try to go live. I think I'm going to try to make a video this weekend to recap this week. I just want to go through because I think there's a lot of good segments in there to string together. I mean, she was laughing with Alan Jackson a few times. She is like very chummy with Alan Jackson. I mean, she paid him 50 grand more than Yannetti, so she's getting something a little extra from him. But so the black box in her car, I don't know if that's going to come out. I mean, if the key cycle thing, if they did try to clear it with the key cycles, I don't know if they did. I don't know what so it's Toyota TechStream, and I think it's like better than a black box. I think it records more. I just don't know what's on it or what they were able to recover, if they were able to clear it or what happened. But I mean, if her taillight was smashed out, that should have recorded that accident, not an accident. So like a black box, I think only would record accidents, but the TechStream, I think, records more. Like it's more comprehensive. So I think that's probably what the key cycle thing is, and I don't know. Yeah, the car, they're definitely going to have experts on the car, I think. They have to. I just thought it was like sketchy today how they put the Celebrate report in front of Nicole Albert. It was like, do you see this? I mean, I can't wait till that part comes out because I know a little bit about that kind of stuff, so I already kind of know that it's fraudulent, like what they have on there. So I just want to see it get ripped apart, because that's the whole conspiracy, is that Google starts the Celebrate thing, that I know is wrong. The dog bites that didn't happen. Colin that hated Nebuchadnezzar, but there was actually no bad blood. The taillight was planted at 4:30 p.m., but we now know that it was smashed out at 8 in the morning or 5 in the morning when she first pulled out. There was no red pieces to plant. And yeah, so I think that's about it. So I'll put out a video this weekend just like recapping the whole week because I think there's a lot of good things in there. But I will talk to you all soon. Have a good night.